Alpha King Tristan Blackmore had survived 3 wars, 7 assassination attempts, and a winter siege without surrendering. Then Fiona Bellwether smelled him from across her marble hall and rang the emergency sanitation bell. For the first time in his life, the Wolf King feared an Omega holding a bath brush. The bell was silver, polite, and devastating. It chimed 3 times above the reception desk of Bellwether Herbal Springs, the largest therapeutic hot spring estate in the empire. Servants in cream uniforms froze. Herbalists stopped labeling jars. 2 massage attendants looked up from a stack of linen towels with the grave expressions of people who had trained for disaster but hoped never to meet it before breakfast. At the center of the hall stood Tristan Blackmore in full war form. Not human. Wolf. Enormous, black-furred, mud-armored, and steaming faintly in the warm indoor air. His shoulders rose almost as high as Fiona's herb cabinet. His paws were the size of serving platters. Dried battlefield mud clung to his legs in cracked plates. Old blood, smoke, sweat, rain, pine resin, and 3 weeks of military stubbornness rolled off him in such force that Fiona's Omega senses nearly wrote a resignation letter. She did not step back. She had founded this estate at 24 and expanded it at 26. At 29, she managed noble fevers, alpha temper, council fatigue, post-battle injuries, nervous nobles, and one royal cousin who believed lavender was an attack on masculinity. She had been underestimated by every rank above Omega and obeyed by every patient who wanted to leave cleaner than they arrived. The Alpha King was impressive. The Alpha King was also dripping something onto her white stone floor. Fiona folded her hands at her waist and smiled with professional warmth. "Your Majesty," she said, "welcome to Bellwether Herbal Springs. Please do not take another step." The massive wolf stared at her. His golden eyes narrowed. Inside Tristan's mind, his wolf growled with wounded dignity. "This Omega is small. Why is she ringing bells at us? Because we smell like a siege ditch," Tristan answered. "We smell like victory. Victory is fermenting." Fiona's chief attendant, Mara, hurried to her side with a slate board. She was a sturdy beta woman who feared infection more than politics and had worked with Fiona long enough to understand that a smile could be sharper than a scalpel. "Emergency sanitation?" Mara asked. Fiona kept her gaze on the Alpha King. "Full protocol." The wolf's ears shifted, not folded, never folded, only adjusted for tactical listening. At least, that was what Tristan told himself. Mara clicked her chalk against the board. War form entry, severe mud contamination, active old wound odor, smoke saturation, possible fungal risk under right shoulder matting. Tristan's wolf recoiled. Fungal risk? Fiona tilted her head. "And the left rear paw?" Mara sniffed once. "Swamp rot exposure." "Absolutely not," the wolf snarled. Tristan had crossed the blood fen 3 days before. He chose not to mention it. Behind him, the Imperial escort remained near the door, exhausted and far too relieved. The Emperor had sent Tristan to the estate as a reward for ending the border campaign. The Imperial letter had described Bellwether Herbal Springs as a sanctuary of rest, healing, and refined restoration. Tristan had imagined a private room, a meal, and perhaps a fire. He had not imagined a sanitation bell. He had also not imagined the estate owner would be an Omega with silver blonde hair pinned neatly beneath a white scarf. Her gray eyes were calm as polished stone. Her scent carried rosemary, clean linen, and winter mint. She looked like she would offer tea to a dying man. She also looked like she would sterilize the cup before he finished dying. Fiona stepped to the side and gestured toward a wide corridor lined with blue tiles. "The war form therapy pool is prepared." Tristan did not move. She smiled more gently. That was not a suggestion. His alpha presence filled the hall. It was vast, battle-honed, and older than courtesy. The servants lowered their eyes by instinct. Even Mara's chalk paused against the slate. Fiona felt it along her skin, a low thunder of rank. Her Omega body recognized the king before her pride could comment. She took one slow breath through her mouth. Then she looked at the muddy print spreading on her floor. The floor won. "Your Majesty," Fiona continued, still pleasant. You may refuse treatment. That is your right. If you refuse sanitation, however, you may not enter a guest chamber, dining room, herb room, recovery hall, steam room, or linen corridor. We can prepare the stone isolation shed. Tristan's eyes narrowed further. His wolf went still. Isolation shed? Fiona's smile did not move. It has a roof. The imperial physician, standing behind the escort, cleared his throat. Majesty, the Emperor's medical order requires post-campaign evaluation. Tristan turned his head. The physician became fascinated by his own shoes. Fiona stepped forward just enough to reclaim the room. This is not punishment. It is wound management, infection prevention, muscle release, and basic respect for my floors. His wolf bristled. We are not a floor problem. The mud beneath his front paw softened and slid. Fiona looked at it, then at him. Her voice stayed mild. Your boots would be establishing new territory if you had boots. Mara made a strangled sound and turned it into a cough. Tristan finally moved. He did not obey. He advanced strategically toward the blue-tiled corridor because the stone isolation shed sounded cold, and because his shoulder had begun throbbing the moment Fiona mentioned it. Also because the Omega smelled clean. Not perfumed. Clean. His wolf disliked noticing that. The corridor opened into a chamber built for creatures too large for ordinary doors. Steam drifted across black stone. Copper pipes ran along the walls. Shelves held jars of mineral salts, blocks of herbal soap, long-handled brushes, linen wraps, and bundles of drying rosemary. At the center waited a sunken oval pool lined with smooth basalt, wide enough for a war-form wolf to sit without breaking furniture. The water was hot. It smelled of pine tar, willow bark, salt, and bitter cleansing herbs. No flowers floated on top. Tristan relaxed by one whisker. Then Mara entered carrying a basket of pale petals. His wolf recoiled as if ambushed. No. Fiona glanced at the basket. Comfrey blossoms, they reduce inflammation. Flowers are flowers. Medicine can be attractive, Tristan told his wolf. Betrayal can also be attractive. Fiona pointed to the stone ramp descending into the pool. In, please. The Alpha King stared at the water. Every campaign instinct in him objected. Hot water stripped scent. Soap erased smoke, blood, and warning. Clean fur carried no memory of battle. Clean skin did not tell enemies what he had survived. Among his war packs, mud and smoke meant readiness. Scent meant information. A wolf fresh from battle wore the field until the field no longer mattered. Fiona watched his resistance gather. For the first time, her expression softened without losing firmness. You will not lose your strength in water. Tristan's gaze snapped to hers. She had read too much from his stillness. Unacceptable. Useful. His body whispered. You are not here to be polished into a court ornament, she said. 3 wounds under that mud smell wrong. Your right hind leg is stiff. Your wolf is breathing like he has not slept properly in a month. The room quieted. Tristan's wolf stopped objecting. Fiona lowered her voice. I dislike mud. I do not dislike you. That sentence landed strangely. Tristan stepped into the water. Heat climbed his legs. He stopped halfway down the ramp, horrified by how good it felt. Fiona did not smile triumphantly. That would have been easier to resent. Instead, she checked the steam, adjusted a copper valve, and nodded to Mara. Full rinse first. No soap until the first layer is off. First layer, the wolf repeated in outrage. Tristan sat in the pool with the solemn suffering of a king at execution. Water surged around his massive body. Mud loosened at once, clouding the surface brown. Mara took notes. 2 attendants approached with copper spray handles. Tristan growled. Fiona lifted one finger. The growl stopped. His wolf was shocked. Did we just obey a finger? We paused tactically. She has a brush. That was true. Fiona chose the largest long-handled brush from the rack. It was wide, bristled, and brutally clean. Tristan eyed it. His wolf whispered, Weapon. Back first, Fiona said. The Alpha King gave her a look that had ended negotiations. Fiona dipped the brush in the water. Your Majesty, Your left flank contains enough dried mud to start a garden. Turn." He did not turn. She walked to the herb brazier and dropped a bundle of gray-green leaves onto the coals. Steam rose, sharp and medicinal. Tristan's muscles loosened before his pride could object. His hindquarters sank another inch into the pool. The wolf gasped. She defeated our knees. Fiona returned with the brush. "Excellent. Now we are sitting properly." Tristan's ears went hot beneath wet fur. She began brushing, not gently, not cruelly, professionally. The first stroke down his back removed a stripe of battlefield from his coat. The second found a clump of burrs. The third reached an old scar that made his breath catch. Fiona stopped at once. "Pain?" Tristan could have denied it. His wolf wanted to deny it. The heat, herbs, and Fiona's steady hand made denial feel childish. He gave one short rumble. She understood. "Old tear under the shoulder," she told Mara. "Mark for salve after rinse." Then, to Tristan, she added, "I will work around it." She did. That was worse than force. Force, he understood. Careful restraint unsettled him. For the next hour, the Alpha King of Blackmoor endured the first bath of his adult reign. He endured rinsing, brushing, herbal steam, paw inspection, wound cleaning, and the discovery that his tail contained a twig. Fiona removed the twig with silver tongs and placed it in a dish labeled foreign debris. Mara wrote it down. Tristan closed his eyes. His wolf murmured, "We will kill the dish. We will not. It insulted us. It is porcelain." The worst moment came when Fiona inspected his claws. She lifted one enormous front paw from the water with both hands, studied the mud packed beneath the claws, and gave a soft sigh. No warrior had ever feared a sigh before. Tristan did now. "Your Majesty," she said, "if this remains until evening, you will sleep in the recovery outbuilding." There were no other animals in Bellwether's recovery outbuilding. It was simply a stone structure with drains, used for patients who refused proper hygiene. Tristan knew that because the imperial physician had mentioned it with concern during the journey. His wolf was appalled. Outbuilding. Fiona selected a narrow claw brush. "Hold still." He held still. Mara's chalk paused again. Fiona brushed one claw clean, then another. The silence grew large. Tristan stared at the far wall and contemplated leaving the Empire. Fiona hummed under her breath. It was not a song. It was a working sound, light and steady. Her fingers were warm despite the water. She treated his paw not as a symbol of his rank, not as a threat, but as a wounded, dirty thing that needed care. His wolf, traitorous and warm from steam, whispered, "Her hands are kind." Tristan said nothing. The wolf added, "The brush is still an enemy." Agreed. By the time the first bath ended, the water had been drained twice. The floor had been mopped once. 3 towels had been sacrificed. The foreign debris dish contained 2 twigs, 1 torn strap, 4 burrs, a pebble, and something Mara refused to identify until it stopped smelling. Fiona stepped back and examined him. Tristan stood in the shallow pool, wet black fur sleeked down, old scars visible, golden eyes wary. He looked smaller without mud, not weaker, more real. Fiona nodded. "Acceptable for Phase 1. His wolf perked up. "Phase 1? Tristan looked at her. "How many phases?" The words came out as a low wolf form rumble, shaped enough for another wolf to understand. Fiona, being Omega and trained in warform care, understood perfectly. Her smile returned. "Today? 4. Tristan considered the stone isolation shed. For the first time, it seemed peaceful. The second phase involved herbal soap. Fiona presented 3 blocks on a tray: pine resin, honey oat, and rose clay. Tristan recoiled from the third. His wolf snarled. Insult. Fiona did not look up from her notes. Rose clay is for inflamed skin. Pine resin is for heavy coat. Honey oat is for dryness. None of them are political statements. Tristan pointed his nose at the pine block. "A predictable choice," Fiona murmured. He gave her a warning look. "A medically sound choice," she corrected. Mara hid a smile behind the slate. The pine soap was tolerable. Barely. It smelled of resin and sharp green bark. not court perfume. Fiona worked it into his coat with strong hands and a brush that seemed determined to find every secret clump of mud he had hoped to keep. Foam rose along his shoulders. His wolf stared mentally at the bubbles. We are crowned in shame. We are clean. Same thing. Fiona found another twig. Mara labeled it foreign debris, second offense. Tristan decided the slate was also an enemy. The third phase was the muscle release soak. The pool refilled with clear hot water. Fiona added bundles of herbs tied in linen, mineral salts, and a dark oil that smelled bitter enough to be useful. No petals appeared. Tristan watched the basket closely in case of betrayal. Fiona noticed. No blossoms this round. He lowered himself into the water with the caution of a general entering a suspicious treaty. Heat wrapped around his legs, belly, chest, and shoulders. The herbs opened under steam. Pain he had been carrying so long it felt like part of his name began to loosen. His wolf went silent, not asleep, listening inward. Fiona sat on a low stool outside the pool and checked the old tear near his shoulder. She did not touch until he turned his head and gave the smallest nod. Permission. She accepted it as if it mattered, because it did. Her fingers parted wet fur and found the swollen ridge of scar tissue. She pressed around it with careful skill. Tristan's body locked. Fiona removed her hand at once. Enough? He could have used that moment to escape. He could have stood, shaken half the pool over her perfect floor, and declared that no king should be boiled in herbs. Instead, he gave one rough breath and lowered his head. Continue. Fiona understood. Slowly, she told him. She worked slowly. The pain sharpened, then dulled. Warmth moved deeper. His shoulder, which had burned since the last siege, released by a fraction. His wolf whispered, "Oh." Tristan ignored the softness in that sound. Fiona did not. Her expression changed, not with pity, but recognition. She had seen warriors discover relief before. They always looked startled, then offended, as if pain had been stealing from them and no one had filed a report. "You have been carrying this too long," she said. Tristan opened one eye. Her voice remained gentle. Her hand remained steady. "That is not praise." His ear flicked. She continued, "Pain endured without need is not strength. It is poor maintenance." His wolf absorbed that. Poor maintenance? Tristan was too tired to answer. The fourth phase was drying. No one had warned him about drying. 3 attendants approached with linen sheets and absorbent cloths. Fiona directed them with brisk precision. Tristan stood in the drained basin while they pressed water from his fur. He endured the flank towels. He tolerated the shoulder wraps. He objected when Mara approached his tail with a comb. The objection was not verbal. It shook droplets from ceiling to floor. Fiona closed her eyes. The room dripped. Mara lowered the comb. Tristan felt a moment of victory. Then Fiona opened her eyes. "Your Majesty, if you shake water onto my sterilized herb shelves again, I will order the rose clay." The wolf went still. Tristan held his tail out. Mara combed it. No battle had prepared him for this. That evening, Tristan was given a recovery chamber with heated stone floors and plain linen. It had a low sleeping platform, large enough for war form. It also had a bowl of broth he did not ask for but drank anyway. He remained in wolf shape because shifting with half-treated wounds would irritate the shoulder. Fiona explained this through the door while refusing him access to his old muddy cloak. "It is being burned," she said. Tristan lifted his head. "Sterilized," she amended. "Possibly burned if it resists." His wolf mourned. "That cloak knew us. It knew mildew." Mara brought a clean black wrap for later shifting. Fiona placed a cedar herb pillow near the platform. Tristan stared at it. "For sleep," Fiona explained. He gave a low rumble. "Not decoration." Another rumble. "Not surrender." His wolf sniffed through him. Cedar. Mint. Heat. Omega clean. Tristan hated that the pillow smelled good. He hated more that he slept for 9 hours. The next morning, he woke with the pillow under his jaw and one front paw curled around it. Fiona entered with a tray of wound salves. She stopped. He opened one eye. Her mouth did not smile, her eyes did. "Good morning, Your Majesty. I see the enemy pillow survived the night." He released it at once. His wolf protested. "We captured it." Fiona set the tray down. Naturally. The second day of treatment began with inspection. Fiona arrived wearing a pale green work dress, sleeves rolled, hair pinned, and a small silver scent mask around her neck. Tristan considered the scent mask an insult until she explained it was for concentrated wound work and not him personally. Then she added, "Mostly." He growled. She marked something on her chart. Voice strong, temper recovering. His wolf grumbled, "She charts our anger. She charts everything." This was true. By midday, the entire estate knew 3 facts about the Alpha King. First, he had survived the emergency bath. Second, he had slept with the cedar pillow. Third, he had allowed Fiona Bellwether to comb his tail under threat of rose clay. No one said these facts aloud near him. They did not need to. The walls of a healing estate had ears, noses, and laundry staff. Tristan's generals arrived after lunch. They came in human form, dressed in dark campaign coats. They smelled of road dust, old leather, and the smug relief of soldiers who had not yet been placed in a pool. There were 4 of them, all alpha, all loyal, and all foolish enough to believe their king's treatment would be amusing from a safe distance. Fiona met them in the reception hall. Tristan watched from the upper corridor in loose black clothing and a bandaged shoulder, hair still damp from another rinse he had not agreed to in spirit. General Edric glanced up at him. The man's mouth twitched. Tristan's eyes narrowed. Fiona followed Edric's glance. Then she inhaled once. Her entire expression changed. Not anger, professional opportunity. "Gentlemen," she said, "you came directly from the road?" Edric's smile faded. Edric answered with less confidence, "Yes, Mistress Bellwether." Fiona's eyes moved to his cuffs. "And from the Western Field camp before that?" The general's shoulders tightened. Briefly, her pencil tapped once against the chart. "Without full sanitation?" The generals looked at one another. Tristan's wolf lifted its head. "Oh." Fiona turned to Mara. "Prepare 4 standard alpha decontamination baths." The reception hall froze. Edric said, with the caution of a man approaching a cliff, "We came to consult His Majesty." Fiona's voice stayed sweet. "You may consult him after your boots stop endangering my rugs." Tristan leaned one shoulder against the wall. His wolf, for the first time since arrival, was delighted. Justice. The generals were escorted away, not dragged, escorted with such polite inevitability that resistance would have looked childish. An hour later, 4 battle-hardened Alpha officers sat in adjoining stone-soaking pools. Their arms were crossed. Their expressions were severe. Each wore a folded towel on his head to keep steam from dripping into his eyes. Fiona inspected the line. Very good. Edric stared at the wall. Another general muttered that pine soap was acceptable. Mara wrote that down. Tristan stood in the doorway, absolutely silent. Fiona glanced at him. "Your Majesty, gloating raises blood pressure." He turned away. His wolf rolled in satisfaction. "We are not the only one in water." The estate settled into routine. Routine, Tristan discovered, was a battlefield with towels. At dawn, Fiona's staff checked his temperature, wound scent, muscle tension, and mood. Mood was not written in those exact words, but Tristan saw Mara's slate. It included entries such as growled at compress, tolerated paw inspection, attempted to hide salve, accepted broth when no one looked. At mid-morning came warform pool work. Fiona insisted that healing large muscle groups required wolf shape. Tristan insisted this was convenient for her because it gave her more surface area to scrub. She replied that accurate statements could still be complaints. At noon came rest. He hated rest. His wolf loved rest but refused to admit it. By the 5th day, the wolf had opinions about water temperature. Too cool. "You hate baths," Tristan reminded it. "We hate bad baths." Fiona added more hot water. The wolf sighed. Tristan considered this treason. The soap matter grew worse. Fiona kept an entire cabinet of herbal blocks, each stamped with the bellwether leaf mark. pine resin, cedar ash, honey oat, nettle mint, willow charcoal, rose clay, salt sage, and black spruce. Tristan had assumed soap was soap. Fiona explained skin, coat, wound edges, oil balance, scent neutrality, and fungal prevention until his head hurt. Then she handed him honey oat for a dry patch near his ribs. His wolf objected weakly. Honey sounds soft. Dry skin sounds worse. We are becoming civilized. We are becoming less itchy. The wolf had no reply to that. Tristan used the honey oat. Fiona noticed, because Fiona noticed everything. She said nothing. That was worse than teasing. He caught her smiling into a towel, his ears heated in human form, which was unforgivable. On the 7th day, Tristan attempted escape. It was not a serious escape. He was the Alpha King. If he truly wished to leave, he could walk out, summon his escort, and face Fiona's disappointment like a warrior. Instead, he chose a side corridor after steam therapy, still damp, barefoot, and wrapped in a black robe that belonged to the estate and smelled aggressively clean. His plan was simple: find the outer garden, breathe air that did not contain eucalyptus, return before anyone noticed. He made it 12 paces. An elderly Omega attendant stepped from the linen alcove with a basket on one hip. Her name was Nessa. She had worked at Bellwether Herbal Springs since before Fiona inherited it and possessed the calm of someone who had outlived many foolish alphas. She looked at Tristan's wet footprints, then at Tristan. "Your Majesty," Nessa said, "the escape corridor is mopped on Thursdays." Tristan stared. "Today is not Thursday." Nessa pointed back the way he had come. His wolf whispered, "We can go around her." Tristan looked at Nessa's face. "No, we cannot." He returned to the steam room. Fiona was waiting with a towel. "Fresh air?" she asked. He accepted the towel. Tristan wrapped it around his shoulders. "Strategic assessment." Fiona glanced toward the corridor. "Of the linen alcove?" His dignity limped onward. "Security is complex." She made a note. "Patient attempted unscheduled corridor survey, returned voluntarily." His wolf protested. "We were defeated by an elder with towels." Fiona looked up. "Would you like that included?" Tristan realized he had spoken aloud. He closed his eyes. She did not laugh. Not until later. The laugh came during his shoulder treatment, soft and sudden. Mara had brought in Nessa's requested corridor sign. It read that all wet alphas must turn back. Tristan's dignity suffered. His shoulder improved. This became the pattern of the estate. Humiliation arrived with healing. Annoyance arrived with sleep. Cleanliness arrived with arguments. Fiona moved through all of it with terrifying grace, never rushing, never flinching, never treating his rank as more important than his recovery. Tristan began to notice things about her. At first, he noticed her scent because he was wolf and wounded and alive. Rosemary, mint, clean wool, warm skin, crushed calendula, and the faint omega sweetness she kept carefully muted in professional spaces. Then he noticed her hands. Strong hands, careful hands, always warm from steam or work. Hands that could scrub mud from a war-formed flank without apology, and then pause at the first sign of pain. Then he noticed her tiredness. Fiona was precise with everyone except herself. She skipped meals when the herb still room ran late. She stayed awake to adjust soldiers' sleeping drafts. She lifted boxes that other staff should have carried. She smiled at nobles who treated Omega expertise like a charming novelty, then corrected their treatment plans with ink sharp enough to cut. The first time Tristan carried a crate for her, she looked at him as if he had stolen it. "That crate is part of my inventory system." He held it easily. "It was heavy." Fiona pointed downward. "That is why it was on the floor." Tristan looked at the shelf. "Now it is on the shelf." Her expression turned patient. "The wrong shelf." His wolf winced. Fiona pointed to a labeled rack. "Dried nettle does not go beside sleep blends unless you want very alert dreams." Tristan moved the crate. She watched. "Thank you." It was a small phrase. His wolf reacted as if awarded a province. "We have assisted the den. It is a still room. Den. No." Fiona's mouth curved as if she could hear the argument through his face. "Internal rebellion?" Tristan set the crate correctly. "Ongoing." Fiona folded her arms. "Over nettle?" Over terminology, Tristan admitted. She looked around the tidy shelves. Tell it the still room is not a den. His wolf was offended. She knew. Tristan did not ask how. Fiona's omega senses were not supernatural in the dramatic sense. She could not read minds. She could, however, read bodies the way herbalists read leaves. A change in breath, warmth under skin, the edge of scent before embarrassment became speech. Tristan, for all his warcraft, was shockingly transparent when wet, tired, and holding dried nettle. Her staff noticed the change before he did. The Alpha King stopped fighting every bath. He still objected. Objection seemed to be part of his breathing. But he arrived on time. He chose pine resin before Fiona handed it to him. He lowered himself into the warform pool with only one accusing glance. He allowed Mara to inspect his paws without threatening the porcelain debris dish. On the 10th day, he lifted his front paw for claw cleaning before Fiona asked. The chamber went silent. Fiona looked at the paw. Mara looked at Fiona. Tristan realized what he had done. His wolf whispered, "Too late." Fiona took his paw with ceremony. "Excellent initiative, Your Majesty." He stared at the wall. His tail moved once under the water. The splash hit Mara's apron. Mara wrote something down. Tristan did not ask. The emotional turning point came not in a bath, but beside one. A storm rolled over the estate at night, shaking rain against the high windows and filling the hot spring chambers with a low thunder echo. Tristan woke in war form, teeth bared, before he knew where he was. The room smelled clean, too clean. No smoke, no blood, no wet battlefield ground, no sentries calling position. His shoulder burned. His wolf surged into old readiness. Up, guard, door, enemy. The recovery chamber door opened. Fiona stood there in a gray robe, hair braided over one shoulder, holding a covered lamp. She did not rush in. She did not call for guards. She stopped outside the threshold and let him see her hands. "Storm," she said, "not siege." Tristan's breath came hard. His claws scraped the floor. The thunder cracked again. His body remembered the winter siege, the walls shaking, the mud freezing, the wounded pressed together, the smell of smoke under snow. Fiona lowered herself to sit on the hallway floor outside his room. Omega, his wolf recognized. Not weak, steady. "I will stay here," she said. "You do not have to sleep. You do not have to talk. You do have to keep breathing." He wanted to say he was fine. He was in wolf form, and the lie would have sounded like a snarl. So he breathed. Fiona matched him, slow enough to lead, but not so obvious that pride could reject it. Rain moved over the roof. The lamp glowed between them. The estate creaked and sighed around the storm. After a while, his claws eased. After longer, his head lowered to his paws. Fiona remained in the hallway until dawn. She did not mention it at breakfast. That was mercy. She did, however, add storm night breathing practice to his treatment schedule. That was Fiona. The days after the storm taught Tristan a humiliating truth. A war council was easier than a healing schedule. At a war council, people argued about supply lines, enemy roads, and whether the northern passes would freeze before reinforcements arrived. At Bellwether Herbal Springs, Fiona argued with him about ear drying. Ear drying, apparently, was not optional. Tristan discovered this when he emerged from the lower mineral pool in war form and shook himself once. Only once. The movement was instinct. The result was catastrophic. Water burst from his black fur in a glittering ring. It struck the tiles, the walls, 2 folded towel stacks, Mara's slate, and 1 silver lamp. Fiona stood directly in front of him. She had raised her chart at the last moment, so only the edges of her sleeves suffered. The room went silent. Tristan froze with one paw still lifted. His wolf whispered, "We have made rain indoors." Fiona lowered the chart. "Your Majesty," she murmured, "did you just declare war on my laundry room?" Tristan set his paw down with dignity. That was difficult when water dripped from his left ear. Fiona pointed toward a bench. "Sit." He sat, because the alternative involved slipping on the tile and ending the monarchy through poor bath etiquette. Mara rushed forward with towels. Nessa appeared from nowhere, as she often did when linen was endangered. Two attendants moved with the exhausted speed of people who had seen too much moisture. Fiona took a smaller towel herself. Tristan watched her approach. His wolf went still for a different reason. She smelled of rosemary, clean skin, and a little annoyance. Annoyance should not have smelled attractive. It did. That seemed unfair. Ear, Fiona instructed. Tristan angled his head away. Fiona waited. He angled it farther. The towel remained lifted. Majesty, she said, with dangerous sweetness, I can dry your ears gently, or I can summon Nessa with the long-handled mop. Nessa lifted the mop from the doorway. Tristan lowered his head. Fiona dried one ear with careful fingers. The touch was practical. It should have felt medical. It did feel medical, mostly. It also made his wolf melt into a disgraceful warm puddle behind his ribs. Do not lean into it, Tristan warned himself. His left ear leaned into it. Fiona paused. Tristan stared at the wall. Mara found urgent interest in the floor. Nessa, who had no mercy left after decades of damp alphas, made a note on her linen inventory. Good, Fiona said at last. His wolf sighed. Tristan's right ear betrayed him before Fiona asked. It tilted toward her towel. Fiona did not laugh. That was worse. She finished drying him and stepped back. No shaking in treatment rooms. Tristan gave a low sound. Fiona raised one brow. No shaking. That is not a legal counterargument. His wolf muttered that it was a very old counterargument. The rule was added to the treatment board by noon. No shaking indoors. Someone had written it in large block letters. Tristan suspected Nessa. He suspected Fiona more. The next problem was scent. Fiona believed healing required neutral air. Tristan believed a king should smell like himself. These ideas collided in the steam chamber on the 8th afternoon. He entered in wolf form with his coat brushed, his shoulder wrapped, and his temper already suspicious. Fiona stood near a copper basin, mixing a pale paste with a wooden spoon. His nose caught chamomile, salt, ground willow, and something soft. He stopped. No. Fiona glanced up. Yes, he had not spoken. He did not need to. You have an irritated patch under the chest fur, she explained. The paste will calm it. Tristan took one step back. Fiona looked at his paws. That is retreat. He lifted his chin. It was strategic distance. It is paste, Fiona said. His wolf sniffed again and recoiled. It smells gentle. Tristan agreed that gentle was the problem. He was Alpha King of the Northern Packs. He had crossed frozen ridges, broken siege lines, and negotiated with border lords who smiled like knives. He would not be painted with something that smelled like a linen drawer. Fiona tapped the spoon against the basin. You have two options, she told him. You may accept this paste, or I may record that the Alpha King was defeated by chamomile. Mara looked down very fast. Tristan's ears flattened. Fiona's voice stayed serene. I will be accurate. Accuracy matters in medical notes. He walked forward like a condemned ruler. She crouched near his chest, careful with his healing shoulder. The paste touched his skin beneath the dense fur. It was cool. It soothed immediately. His wolf stopped complaining. Traitor. Relief moved through him before pride could block it. Fiona saw, because Fiona saw everything. She did not gloat. Instead, she worked in silence, parting fur with skilled fingers. Steam gathered along the polished stone walls. Outside the chamber, water flowed through hidden channels with a soft, hollow song. Tristan looked down at the top of her bright pinned hair. She had a smudge of paste near her wrist. He wanted to lick it clean. The thought hit him so hard that he shifted his weight and nearly stepped into the basin. Fiona caught his foreleg. Careful. Her hands were small against the dark fur. They still stopped him. His wolf grew quiet. For a breath, there was no comedy in the room, only steam. Rosemary. Her pulse, steady but a little faster. His own heart, much less obedient than his army. Then Fiona looked at the basin he had almost crushed. If you break that, I will charge the crown triple. The moment broke. Tristan huffed. His wolf was relieved. We can survive billing. Barely. The estate also discovered that the Alpha King hated floral bath salts, except when he did not. Fiona kept 3 therapeutic blends for deep muscle recovery. One smelled of pine and salt. One smelled of nettle and bitter bark. The third smelled faintly of lavender. Tristan approved the first. He tolerated the second. He treated the third as a personal insult. Fiona did not ask his opinion. She poured a measured scoop into the pool on a cold morning when his shoulder had locked from old battlefield tension. The water changed scent. Tristan stopped on the steps. Fiona did not look up from the jar. "Do not start," he started, not verbally. He gave the pool the same stare he had once given an enemy fortress. Fiona placed the jar on the shelf. Lavender relaxes muscle tension. His growl rumbled over the water. "Your shoulder does not care about your reputation." The growl lowered. "Also, your reputation already survived honey oat." Mara coughed into her sleeve. Tristan turned his head slowly. Mara became fascinated by a drain cover. Fiona pointed at the pool. "In." He entered with the solemnity of a king signing an unfavorable treaty. The warm water closed around his legs. The lavender rose with the steam. He waited for humiliation. Instead, the muscle along his shoulder loosened. The relief was immediate and suspicious. His wolf whispered, "We hate that it works." Tristan sank lower. Fiona sat on the stone edge with her chart. "Any discomfort?" He looked away. "I will mark that as no." A minute passed, then another. The water bubbled softly near the heating vents. His shoulder stopped clenching. His jaw eased. One ear tipped sideways. Fiona's pencil paused. Tristan noticed. He straightened at once. Too late. She had seen the ear. "Interesting," she murmured. He narrowed his eyes. Lavender response positive. The words were medical. Her mouth was not. It held a smile in custody. Tristan considered climbing out. Then the warm water rolled against his sore ribs. He stayed. The next morning, a new jar appeared in his treatment cabinet. Its label read, "Royal Disgrace Lavender." The handwriting was Fiona's. Tristan stared at it for a long time. His wolf laughed so hard that he had to sit down. He should have demanded a correction. Instead, he placed the jar on the higher shelf where the soldiers could not see it. Fiona saw that too. Of course she did. Her estate had become a map of tiny defeats. A towel accepted here, a salve allowed there, a sleeping pillow not thrown across the room, a lavender jar hidden with the care of a state secret. Yet none of those defeats felt like losing. That confused him more than any battle. The Omega herself confused him most. Fiona was not soft in the way court poets imagined Omegas. She was gentle with wounds and merciless with excuses. She spoke to frightened patients in a voice warm enough to steady them, then turned around and reduced a stubborn alpha to silence with one lifted towel. She wore plain work dresses because herbs stained silk. She kept her nails short. She owned exactly one pearl comb, which Mara said had been sent by an emperor and was used mainly to pin up drying cloths. Tristan began noticing ridiculous things. Fiona tapped her pencil twice when a patient lied about pain. She hummed under her breath when mixing salves, never loudly enough to call it music. She tucked loose strands of hair behind her ear with the back of her wrist when her hands were covered in balm. She tasted every broth herself before sending it to fever patients. She called every towel by size. That last habit should not have charmed him. It did. His wolf found it deeply moving. She names the towels. She categorizes supplies. Same thing. It was not. Still, Tristan began to understand why the estate obeyed her. Fiona did not rule by scent, rank, or fear. She ruled by competence so consistent that even rebellion felt inefficient. One evening, after a long day of soldier intake, he found her alone in the sorting room. Stacks of clean linen surrounded her. The air smelled of sun-dried cloth and mint soap. Fiona stood on a low step, trying to reach a high shelf with a bundle under one arm. Tristan watched for 1 second too long. Then he stepped forward and took the bundle from her. She looked over her shoulder. "I could have reached. Eventually." Her eyes narrowed. He placed the linen on the shelf. It was a small act. It felt absurdly intimate. Fiona stepped down and dusted her hands. "Thank you, Your Majesty." "Tristan." The name left him before strategy approved it. Fiona stilled. The sorting room seemed to shrink around them. Outside, someone rolled a cart across stone. Steam pipes clicked in the walls. His wolf held very still. Fiona studied his face, not coyly, not timidly, but with the same exact attention she gave wounds. Only when you stop calling me Mistress Bellwether during arguments, she decided. He exhaled, almost a laugh. Fiona. Her scent warmed. Then the linen stack beside him slipped. He caught it with one hand. A second stack slid from the opposite shelf. Fiona lunged for it. They saved both stacks, but the third stack collapsed behind them with a soft, judgmental thump. Nessa appeared in the doorway. She looked at Tristan. She looked at Fiona. She looked at the fallen towels. "I will note the king is now a linen hazard," Nessa said. Fiona covered her mouth with her hand. Tristan bent to gather the towels. His wolf, drunk on the sound of Fiona trying not to laugh, declared that linen work was honorable. Tristan did not disagree. By the second week, Bellwether Herbal Springs received the first group of Warpack patients from Tristan's campaign. 27 wolf soldiers arrived in 2 wagons and on foot, all in varying states of exhaustion, pride, and dirt. Some were betas, some were alphas. Several came in war form because shifting hurt. All smelled like road, smoke, old salve, and the deep reluctance of warriors approaching clean linen. Fiona stood at the entrance with Mara, Nessa, and a row of attendants. Tristan stood beside her, officially to supervise military intake. Unofficially, Fiona had told him that if his soldiers misbehaved, she would make him demonstrate paw soaking. He had agreed to supervise. The first soldier looked at the blue-tiled corridor and whispered to another that the estate smelled like flowers. Tristan's wolf growled. Fiona heard enough. "Those are antiseptic herbs," she announced. "Anyone who cannot distinguish medicine from decoration will receive the beginner lecture." The soldiers straightened. Tristan looked at them with royal authority. Fiona looked at them with towels. The towels were more effective. Intake took 3 hours. Weapons were tagged and placed on racks. Mud boots went to the outer wash. War form patients used the lower pools. Human form patients received private cubicles, wound checks, and clear instructions that growling at soap did not change its purpose. One alpha captain refused honey oat soap on the grounds that honey was not a warrior's scent. Fiona handed him willow charcoal. He used it. 10 minutes later, he asked whether honey oat helped dry elbows. Mara wrote that down. Tristan heard and looked away. His wolf was pleased. We are not alone. The group therapy pool became the estate's greatest comedy and greatest success. 8 warform wolves sat in a wide mineral basin, shoulders steaming, ears flattened with suspicion, while attendants poured muscle-release herbs into the water. Fiona moved along the edge with a clipboard. Tristan stood nearby in human form, clean, bandaged, and privately grateful he was not in the basin this time. One soldier tried to hide a muddy paw under the water. Fiona did not look up from the chart. "Left front paw out." The soldier froze. Tristan's brows lifted. Fiona checked a box. "Mud has a scent." His wolf whispered, "Her nose is terrifying." Yes. By evening, the soldiers who had mocked the estate were asleep in heated recovery rooms. The ones who had complained about soap asked for extra salve. The one who had requested willow charcoal took honey oat for a friend. Nessa labeled the jar with his name. Tristan watched Fiona run the chaos without raising her voice. She did not command like an alpha. She did not need to. She built systems that made refusal inconvenient, recovery possible, and dignity survivable. Even the most stubborn soldiers found themselves obeying because every rule made sense, and because Fiona would explain it once, then enforce it forever. Respect settled in Tristan slowly. Attraction had come first. He could admit that privately. Her scent, her hands, her courage with a brush. But respect became the deeper danger. Fiona Bellwether did not bend because power leaned on her. She also did not break power for pleasure. She redirected it toward healing and expected everyone, including kings, to keep up. The more he healed, the more he wanted to be near her when he was not being healed. This caused problems. He began arriving early for treatment. Fiona noticed. Fiona glanced toward the clock. Your appointment is at 9. Tristan looked around the shelves with great seriousness. I was nearby. Fiona closed the cabinet. This is a private herb inventory room. He touched one jar as if checking a weakness. Security inspection. Her stare sharpened. Of chamomile? Tristan released the jar. It looked vulnerable. She gave him a look over the jar labels. His wolf, now fully treacherous, whispered, We came because she is here. Tristan said nothing. Fiona handed him a crate of clean towels. Since security is here, carry those. He carried them. The towels smelled of sun, steam, and her estate. His wolf considered this a privilege. Tristan considered resignation from his own instincts. He learned herb names. At first, it was practical. Willow bark for pain, comfrey for swelling, nettle for circulation, lavender for sleep, though he distrusted it on principle, rosemary for clarity, pine resin for coat cleansing, honey oat for dryness, still embarrassing. Then he began remembering Fiona's morning herbs. He learned which jars she kept on the high shelf because Mara overused them. He also learned which blends she prepared herself when the patient had been too proud to admit pain. One afternoon, he found her rubbing her own wrist after hours of writing treatment notes. He set a cup of hot willow tea beside her. She looked at it. Fiona studied the cup. Did you dose me? Tristan's brows drew together. No, she sniffed again. Did Mara? No, he repeated, this time sounding offended. Her eyes narrowed. Did you follow my recipe? He looked away. Yes. She lifted the cup and sniffed. Her brows rose, correctly. His wolf preened. Tristan kept his face neutral. Basic field medicine. Fiona lifted the cup. This is not basic. He adjusted the cuff at his wrist. Intermediate field medicine. She smiled into the cup. His heart, which had survived battle, behaved absurdly. The first almost confession happened during a tail incident. Tristan had shifted to war form for a final coat treatment. His wounds had closed well, his shoulder moved more freely, and Fiona had declared his fur nearly respectable. He had pretended not to care. His wolf had celebrated for 20 minutes. During the drying phase, an attendant carrying folded linen passed behind him. Tristan's tail moved without permission. It struck a basket of clean towels. The towels slid into the shallow rinse pool. Every attendant froze. Fiona looked at the towels, then at his tail, then at his face. Tristan prepared for judgment. Your Majesty, she said, your tail has undone an hour of laundry. His wolf tried to look innocent. War-form faces were not designed for innocence. Fiona walked closer, lifted his tail with both hands, and placed it firmly on the dry side of the stone bench. Stay. Tristan's entire body went still. His wolf whispered. She commanded the tail. She did. It obeyed. It had. This is concerning. Fiona's hands remained on his tail for one breath too long. She seemed to realize it at the same time he did. Her scent changed, just slightly, rosemary and clean linen warming with embarrassment. He turned his head. She released him and stepped back. Laundry safety, she said. He gave a low rumble. Do not make that sound. This was your tail's crime. His wolf offered. We could apologize with excellent stillness. Tristan held perfectly still. Fiona's mouth twitched. That was when he nearly told her. Not that he desired her. That was too simple. He nearly told her that her hands made him feel less like a weapon and more like a living thing. He nearly told her that he had started sleeping because her estate smelled safe. He nearly told her that being ordered into water by an Omega had become less humiliating than being left alone with pain. Instead, he sneezed. The sneeze shook water from his whiskers and sprayed the side of the linen cabinet. Fiona closed her eyes. Phase 5, she said. His wolf panicked. There is no Phase 5. Fiona reached for a towel. There is now. Feelings were postponed due to dampness. The next several days made postponement increasingly difficult. Tristan had faced enemy formations that were less persistent than Fiona's staff. Every morning, someone appeared with a new restorative idea. Mineral soak, shoulder steam, paw pad balm, coat oil, Breath work, gentle walking, less gentle stretching. A dreadful activity Mara called mobility circles, which sounded harmless until Tristan discovered it required moving one injured joint in slow loops while an Omega apprentice counted aloud. He hated the counting. His wolf hated stopping at 8. Fiona caught this weakness on the second attempt. "You want to finish the set," she observed. Tristan, in war form, stared straight ahead. The apprentice held the slate very still. Fiona's pencil hovered. "Interesting," his wolf muttered. "She has found another lever. Yes. 10 circles," Fiona instructed. Tristan completed 10. Good control. His tail gave one satisfied thump. The apprentice smiled. Tristan looked at the tail as if it had betrayed the crown in writing. After that, Fiona used completion against him. If he resisted a treatment, she divided it into precise steps. 3 rinses, 2 stretches, 10 breaths, 5 slow turns through the warm pool. Tristan could ignore comfort. He could not ignore an unfinished sequence. It was cruel. It was effective. It was also how he ended up wearing a steam towel over his head while 4 soldiers watched from the corridor. The towel was not decorative. Fiona had explained this twice. It held heat around the stiff muscles of his neck while he sat in war form with his front paws in a shallow basin. Unfortunately, the towel drooped over his ears, giving him the solemn look of a very large judge who had lost an argument with laundry. The soldiers tried not to stare. Their failure was loud. Tristan opened one eye. The nearest soldier snapped his gaze to a wall. Fiona did not turn around. Anyone laughing will receive the same treatment. 4 spines straightened. The towel slid over Tristan's nose. His wolf whispered, "We cannot see." Tristan lifted his muzzle, trying to restore dignity. The towel fell into the paw basin. Mara made a tiny sound and pretended it was a cough. Fiona picked up the towel, wrung it out, and placed it back over his head with perfect calm. "Stillness," she reminded him. He rumbled, "Stillness is not surrender." That was exactly what he had told himself all week. Hearing it from Fiona made his ribs tighten. He held still. The soldiers saw that too. By supper, half the Warpack patients were asking for steam towels. They claimed it was for muscle relief. Nessa claimed it was because the king made foolish things look official when he glared hard enough. Tristan did not deny this. He was busy discovering that warm cloth helped headaches. Fiona's estate changed around the soldiers. It became louder, warmer, and more ridiculous. War form patients learned which pools were for sore joints and which were for skin irritation. Human form patients learned that hiding bandages under sleeves only delayed Fiona by 3 minutes. Someone started a quiet competition over who could soak without complaining the longest. Tristan accidentally won the first day. He had not known it was a competition. His soldiers took this as royal strategy. By the 3rd day, 8 alphas were sitting in mineral water with grim expressions, each determined to suffer relaxation better than the others. Fiona walked along the pool edge and looked at them over her chart. "Gentlemen, if you turn healing into a dominance contest, I will assign all of you lavender." The pool went still. One soldier whispered that he had no objection to lavender. Tristan looked at him. The soldier sank lower until only his eyes showed. Fiona tapped her pencil. "I heard that, Captain Vare. Sensible men get shorter lectures." Captain Vare emerged a little. His expression suggested that shorter lectures had become worth public shame. Tristan's wolf respected him. Progress did not happen in a clean line. Some mornings, Tristan woke with his shoulder tight and his temper worse. Some nights, he dreamed of mud, shouting, and the cold metallic scent of old wounds. On those mornings, he tried to refuse the pool by becoming silent. Fiona quickly learned that silence was not agreement. She also learned not to push in the same way every time. Once, she brought him bitter tea and sat outside his door until he opened it. Once, she sent Nessa, who informed him that sulking damaged airflow. Once, she rolled a basin into his chamber and began washing the floor with exaggerated attention. His wolf became so offended by the scent of floor soap that he went to the proper treatment room voluntarily. That last method worked too well. Tristan accused Fiona of tactical cleaning. She accepted the charge. His worst morning came after a messenger arrived from the capital. The council wanted him back early. The campaign was over, but Borders always created paperwork, and paperwork had no respect for healing tissue. Tristan read the sealed packet in his chamber while rain streaked the windows. His body reacted before his mind finished. The shoulder tightened. His jaw locked. The old thought returned, familiar and stupid. Leave. Work. Prove recovery by ignoring it. His wolf hated the idea and still understood it. When Fiona entered for treatment, he stood in human form, already dressed in dark travel clothes. She stopped at the threshold, her scent sharpened. That outfit is not on the schedule. Tristan folded the letter. The council requests my return. Fiona's reply was calm. The council can request many things. Tristan's jaw tightened. I am king. She pointed at his shoulder. You are also halfway through a shoulder recovery plan. His temper rose. Not at her. Never exactly at her. At the letter, the council, his own stiffness, the part of him that still believed pain was a receipt for usefulness. Fiona saw all of it. Her voice became quieter. Are you leaving because you are needed, or because rest has started to feel dangerous again? The question struck too cleanly. Tristan looked away. His wolf lowered its head. Fiona did not soften the truth by pretending she had not hit it. If there is a crisis, I will pack salves and send a healer with you, she continued. If there is only impatience, you can answer the council from a desk that does not smell like infected leather. That should not have been funny. His mouth nearly moved. Fiona saw that too, of course. Fiona's warning came before the smile could fully form. Do not smile. I am irritated with you. Tristan controlled his mouth. I was not smiling. She looked at his face with healer's precision. Your left eyebrow was considering it. The anger cracked. Only a little. Enough. He handed her the letter. She read it once, then twice. Her eyes narrowed at the section where the council requested his immediate presence for ceremonial review. Ceremonial review, she repeated. Tristan braced. Fiona folded the letter with surgical precision. Your council wants you to stand in a hall and look recovered, she said. Tristan accepted that with a grim nod. That is part of rule. Fiona placed the letter on the desk. Looking recovered is not the same as being recovered. His answer was quiet. No. She walked to his writing desk, took a fresh sheet, and dipped the pen. Tristan watched in wary silence as Fiona wrote. Her handwriting was neat, sharp, and entirely without fear. When she finished, she held the sheet out. The reply stated that Alpha King Tristan Blackmore remained under medical supervision at Bellwether Herbal Springs. It explained that early travel could worsen joint function and slow wound recovery. It also warned that poor recovery would create unnecessary strain on the Crown's military leadership. Finally, it recommended that the council review the attached sanitation guidelines for returning campaign staff. At the bottom, Fiona had signed her name and added her professional seal. Tristan stared at it. Tristan stared at the page. You sent my council homework. Fiona capped the ink. I sent them guidance. His voice lowered. On sanitation. She lifted her chin. A neglected subject. His wolf sat up, awed. Tristan felt something warm move through his chest. It was not just amusement. It was not only attraction. It was the strange relief of watching someone defend his healing as if it mattered beyond usefulness. They will object, he warned. They may do so in writing, after washing their hands. He laughed. It surprised them both. The sound came rough, low, and unused. Fiona looked up from the desk, her expression softer than he expected. Rain tapped the windows behind her. The room smelled of ink, wet stone, and her steady rosemary warmth. Tristan wanted to cross the room. He did not. That restraint mattered more than crossing it would have. Fiona sealed the reply and handed it to Mara for dispatch. After the door closed, she pointed at the travel clothes. Change. He looked down. Into treatment robes. His wolf, newly loyal to Fiona's tyranny, agreed. Tristan changed. The council received the letter by evening. By next morning, 3 council clerks arrived at the estate with documents and stiff collars. They wore the faces of men who expected to discipline a healer. Instead, they found themselves standing before Nessa's boot tray. They asked to see the king. Nessa asked to see their souls. The clerks blinked. Nessa pointed at the tray. Bellwether rules did not care about government rank. The clerks removed their road shoes. Tristan watched from the upper hall, deeply restored by the sight. Fiona met them in the consultation room. She wore a plain blue work dress, a clean apron, and the expression of a woman who had already won by preparing more forms than her opponents. The senior clerk began with a formal objection. Fiona listened politely. Then she presented Tristan's treatment chart. The chart had measurements, progress notes, wound maps, sleep records, pain markers, mobility scores, and one small entry labeled indoor shaking incident. Tristan noticed that too late. The clerk paused over it. Fiona turned the page before he could ask. Tristan's wolf mourned the lost dignity. After 20 minutes, the clerks understood that Fiona had documentation for everything. After 30 minutes, they understood that challenging her would require reading it. After 40 minutes, they accepted tea. By the end, the senior clerk asked whether the estate could provide a shorter sanitation summary for the Capitol Guard. Fiona promised a version with diagrams. Tristan knew then that she was dangerous, not because she defied kings, because she made bureaucracy useful. That afternoon, Tristan found her in the herb room, sorting labels. "My council fears you," he told her. Fiona placed a jar on the shelf. "Good. They fear the diagrams most." "Also good." He leaned against the doorway. His shoulder did not ache as sharply now. That still felt new. "You should not have had to defend my rest." Fiona did not look at him at once. When she did, her expression held no pity. "Someone had to argue with the part of you that thinks exhaustion is noble." His wolf went quiet. Tristan answered carefully. "That part is stubborn. I noticed. It may require repeated treatment." Her mouth curved. "How unfortunate for you." He wanted to say that it was not unfortunate. He wanted to say he had begun to measure days by when she entered a room. He wanted to say the estate had become the first place in years where his wolf stopped standing guard inside his own skin. Instead, a young attendant rushed in carrying 3 jars of mislabeled balm. Fiona turned instantly professional. Tristan stepped aside. The moment passed, but it did not vanish. It waited, warm as water under stone. The boundary conversation came 2 days later. Fiona found him in the moonlit outer pool after midnight. He was in human form, seated on the stone edge with his feet in the water. Clean black hair fell loose around his shoulders. A plain linen shirt covered his bandages. He looked less like the king from the marble hall and more like the tired man hidden under all that mud. She should not have been surprised to find him there. Patients often returned to water once they stopped fearing it. She was surprised by how much she wanted to sit beside him. So she did. For a while, neither spoke. The pool steamed softly. Moonlight silvered the herbs floating in the water. The estate slept around them except for the low murmur of distant pipes and the faint scent of banked coals. Tristan looked at her hands. "You have treated kings before." Fiona leaned back on her palms. "1 emperor, 2 princes, several people who behaved as if they were kings." His gaze lifted. "And alphas." "Many," she replied, because there was no use pretending otherwise. Tristan studied the water before asking the next question. "Do you speak to all of them as you speak to me?" Fiona considered. "Only the dirty ones." His mouth moved. She let herself enjoy that almost smile. Then she grew serious. "Your Majesty, I need to say something before this becomes more complicated." He turned toward her fully. "Good," she thought. He did not pretend not to understand. "I am an Omega," she said. "You are Alpha King. In the world outside my estate, people will make assumptions before either of us opens our mouths." His expression hardened, not at her, but at the truth. She continued, "Some will think I want power. Some will think you want obedience. Some will think my care for you means I belong to you. I do not." "No," he said. The answer came quickly, rough and certain. Fiona held his gaze. I can treat you. I can care for you. I can even like you, though your relationship with soap remains troubling. His wolf perked up. Fiona's voice softened. But I am not your recovery tool. Tristan flinched. Barely. Enough. She hated that it hurt him, but she would not take it back. He looked toward the water. For a long time, steam moved between them. When I arrived, he said at last, I thought rest was a trap. Fiona listened. I thought clean fur meant I had left the field too soon. I thought pain kept me useful. I thought needing hands on my wounds meant I had failed to heal myself. His fingers curled against the stone. You did not make me feel weak. You made it impossible to keep confusing damage with strength. Her throat tightened. He looked back at her. I do not want you because you healed me. I want to know you because you argued with my worst habits and did not mistake them for my soul. That was not polished. It was better. Fiona looked down at the moonlit water. Fiona looked down at the moonlit water. That was almost romantic. His eyes warmed. Almost? She let the corner of her mouth lift. You mentioned damage. Tristan accepted the criticism gravely. I am learning. Slowly, Fiona added. His answer came with a trace of pride. Thoroughly, she laughed under her breath. The sound eased something in him. Tristan did not reach for her. That mattered. He waited. Fiona placed her hand on the stone between them, palm down, not touching him. If I say no? Tristan did not hesitate. I will obey your estate rules, finish treatment, and leave cleaner than I arrived. Her fingers flexed against the stone. And if I say yes? His voice lowered. I will still obey your estate rules. That answer did it. Fiona laughed, and this time she let her hand move until her fingers touched his. Good. First rule. Anyone who wants to court me must bathe regularly. Tristan looked at their hands. His thumb turned carefully over hers. Tristan looked at their joined hands. Daily? Fiona's answer was merciless. After campaigns, yes. He closed his eyes. Cruel. She squeezed his fingers once. Preventive. His wolf, overheated with joy, declared, We accept all baths. Tristan's face changed. Fiona narrowed her eyes. Your wolf just betrayed you. Tristan gave up defending himself. Completely. Her smile turned smug. Good. At least one of you is sensible. He laughed then, low and real. They did not kiss in the pool. They were both too aware of steam, rank, healing, and the thin line between tenderness and haste. But they sat with their hands together until the moon moved beyond the roofline. For Fiona, that was enough. For Tristan, who had once considered baths an enemy ritual, it was a surrender more honest than any declaration. Courtship at Bellwether Herbal Springs began with a form. Fiona insisted on it. Tristan stared at the paper in her office the next morning. He had expected rules. He had not expected a written intake document titled Personal Courtship Boundaries and Practical Expectations. His wolf, who had faced lavender and lived, recoiled from paperwork. Fiona sat behind her desk with her hair pinned in a silver clip and her sleeves rolled. Morning light crossed the shelves behind her. Bundles of dried rosemary hung from the rafters. A kettle hissed softly near the stove. This is not romantic, Tristan observed. It is extremely romantic, Fiona corrected. It prevents resentment, confusion, and surprise ceremonial bathing. His eyes dropped to the first line. No gifts larger than a treatment cabinet without prior discussion. He looked up. She looked back. His wolf slowly lowered the imaginary cabinet it had already offered. Tristan read the next line. No royal decrees concerning my schedule. Fair. No growling at staff who bring me messages. Specific. No marking estate doors, chairs, robes, towels, treatment pools, herb shelves, or my office as emotionally significant territory. He paused. Fiona's pencil tapped once. Emotionally significant territory? He asked. Fiona did not blink. You looked at my office door yesterday for too long. Tristan tried dignity. I was reading the hinge. She glanced toward the door. The hinge is plain. His wolf muttered that the office smelled like her and safety. Tristan kept his face still. Fiona leaned forward. Your left ear disagrees with you. He reached up and forced the ear back into discipline. In human form, this was less effective than he hoped. The list continued. He had requirements too, though he had to think longer. Fiona waited while he wrote with the careful discomfort of a man unused to asking for anything personal. No public teasing about lavender before soldiers. Reasonable, she allowed. No medical notes about pillow incidents shared with counsel. Conditional, he narrowed his eyes. Fiona explained that if the council threatened her charts, all relevant pillow incidents might become evidence. Tristan accepted this with grave reluctance. He added one more line. No hiding wrist pain. Fiona read it and stilled. For once, she did not answer quickly. Outside the office, a cart rolled past with a squeaking wheel. Somewhere down the hall, an attendant laughed. Steam pipes clicked behind the walls. Fiona touched the edge of the paper. That is not a courtship boundary. It is mine. Her sense softened. His wolf sat very quietly, as if sudden movement might scare the moment away. Fiona took the pencil and wrote beneath it, no pretending royal shoulders are fine when they are not. Tristan read the line, fair, good. They signed the document. Mara witnessed it because Fiona believed systems should survive romance. Mara behaved with admirable professionalism until she reached the line about emotional territory. Then her mouth twitched so hard that Tristan considered assigning her to Capitol Archives. Fiona saw his expression. No banishing my staff, she reminded him. He looked at the form. There it was. Line 7. No banishing staff for smiling. His wolf sighed. She had anticipated everything. Courtship also required dates. This created another difficulty because Tristan's idea of a date involved standing guard somewhere useful. Fiona's idea involved shared time where no one bled, steamed, soaked, or argued about sanitation. Their first attempt took place in the herb garden after supper. Fiona brought tea. Tristan brought a cloak. Fiona accepted the cloak because the evening was cool. Then she sniffed it. Fiona sniffed the cloak. Clean. Tristan inclined his head. Yes. Her eyes brightened. Was that voluntary? He gave the smallest possible answer. Mostly. She smiled. The garden paths wound between raised beds of mint, nettle, chamomile, comfrey, and small silver-leaf shrubs used for fever teas. The air smelled green and sharp. Lanterns hung from iron hooks. Beyond the walls, the lower pools sent up white ribbons of steam. Tristan walked beside Fiona with unusual care. He had guarded queens, escorted diplomats, and crossed battlefields under arrows. None of that prepared him for the difficulty of matching his stride to an omega who stopped every few steps to inspect leaves. Fiona bent over a mint bed. Tristan stopped too late and nearly stepped on a watering can. The can clanged. Fiona looked back. Threat neutralized? She asked. He moved the can aside with his boot. It was poorly positioned. Fiona pointed at the watering can. It was beside a plant. Tristan stepped around it. Ambush location. She laughed, not loudly. The sound warmed the garden path. His wolf pressed closer to his ribs. They walked again. At the far end of the garden, Fiona handed him a small basket. Pick only the mature rosemary stems. Tristan took the basket as if receiving a command seal. How do I identify mature rosemary? Fiona demonstrated. He watched her fingers more than the plant. This was a tactical error. 5 minutes later, he placed 3 wrong stems into the basket. Fiona inspected them and sighed. Your Majesty, you can identify a hidden assassin by footprint pressure, she said. Yet a mature herb stem defeats you? Tristan looked at the rosemary. Assassins are less subtle. Fiona returned 1 stem to the bed. Rosemary does not hide. It does from me, he muttered. She removed the wrong stems and placed them back with care. His wolf, who had begun the evening imagining grand devotion, accepted a smaller ambition: learn rosemary. The second date happened in the drying gallery. This was not planned. Rain trapped them indoors, and Fiona needed to check racks of herbs before damp air ruined them. Tristan followed because courtship made him helpful in ways that embarrassed him. The drying gallery ran along the east wing, high-ceilinged and warm, with narrow windows and rows of hanging bundles. The room smelled of summer preserved against winter. Fiona moved between the racks, checking ties and turning bunches so air could pass through evenly. Tristan carried a stool. He did not trust the stool. It had thin legs. Fiona stepped onto it anyway. His hands lifted at once. She glanced down. I am not falling. Tristan kept one hand near her elbow. The stool is inadequate. Fiona looked at the wooden legs. The stool has served this estate for 12 years. His reply came too honest. It has never held you while I was responsible for not letting you fall. That stopped her. Color touched her cheeks. He realized what he had said and looked at the hanging herbs with intense royal interest. Fiona finished tying the bundle. When she stepped down, she placed one hand briefly on his forearm. It was light. It was deliberate. It turned the warm gallery warmer. Thank you, Tristan. He nodded because speech would have caused structural damage. His wolf whispered, We are doing well. Then a bundle of dried mint fell on his head. Fiona covered her laugh with both hands. Tristan stood beneath the dangling string, mint leaves in his hair, dignity damaged but not fatal. This room is hostile, he declared. Fiona finally laughed aloud. The courtship form did not cover herb attacks. It was amended the next day. Their third date was almost peaceful. Almost. Fiona suggested a quiet tea in the small library. The room held medical texts, herb ledgers, estate maps, and one soft chair where she claimed no patient had ever been allowed to sit. Tristan sat on the floor beside it in war form. This was his idea. He had shifted after treatment because the shoulder needed one more coat inspection. Fiona had planned to finish the check, then let him shift back. Instead, he followed her to the library and settled near the chair like an enormous black shadow with clean paws. Fiona looked down at him. You are aware this is not standard courtship posture. He rested his muzzle on his paws. His wolf was deeply content. Fiona sighed and sat in the chair. For 10 minutes, she read a herb ledger aloud while he listened. It should have bored him. It did not. Her voice moved through notes about root storage, frost damage, and soap supply with such firm affection for order that his wolf felt groomed by sound alone. Then Fiona reached down without looking and scratched behind his ear. Tristan stopped breathing. Fiona stopped reading. Her hand froze. The room became very still. His wolf shouted several things at once. Most were not useful. Fiona slowly withdrew her hand. That was accidental. Tristan opened one eye. Was it unwelcome? She looked at the ledger, then at him. No. The honesty entered the room like warmer light. He shifted his head slightly, giving her the choice. Fiona studied him for a long breath. Then she touched him again, this time with intention. Her fingers moved through the fur behind his ear, gentle and precise. His eyes closed before pride could stop them. She whispered, You are impossible. His wolf answered inside him, hers. Tristan did not say it aloud. Not yet. Fiona's hand continued, and the library filled with rain, paper, rosemary, and the quiet wonder of two stubborn people discovering that tenderness could be practical too. Naturally, Nessa opened the door at that exact moment. She looked at Fiona. She looked at Tristan's blissful, war-formed face. She looked at the ledger. I can return later, Nessa said. Fiona's hand flew back. Tristan lifted his head so fast the chair bumped the shelf. 3 books fell. Nessa caught one, Fiona caught another. The third landed open on Tristan's paw. The title was Advanced Coat Care for Winter Campaigns. Nessa looked at it. Appropriate. Then she left. Fiona pressed the ledger to her chest and laughed until she had to sit down again. Tristan decided that if humiliation made her laugh like that, some humiliation could be endured. The staff noticed the courtship before anyone announced it. Of course they did. Bellwether Herbal Springs noticed everything. It noticed damp footprints, hidden pain, mislabeled salves, and alpha kings who began walking slower when the estate owner walked beside them. Mara noticed first because Tristan stopped calling her reports excessive and began asking whether Fiona had eaten lunch. Nessa noticed because Fiona requested the good tea on days Tristan had difficult treatment. The kitchen noticed because the king's broth started arriving with 2 cups. The laundry noticed because Fiona's spare work shawl disappeared from her office one cold morning and returned folded with military precision. No one commented directly. They valued their employment. They also valued watching. One afternoon, Fiona entered the lower pool chamber to find 3 attendants pretending to polish the same brass rail. Tristan was in war form, seated in warm water, while Mara checked his shoulder movement. Fiona stopped. The attendants polished harder. "Is that rail especially dirty?" she asked. One attendant looked trapped. Nessa, passing behind them with towels, answered without mercy. "No. They are observing romance in its damp stage." Fiona closed her eyes. Tristan's ears rose. His wolf was pleased by the word romance. Fiona opened her eyes and pointed toward the outer hall. "All unnecessary observers out." The attendants fled. Nessa did not flee because Nessa considered herself necessary to civilization. Fiona looked at her. Nessa lifted the towels. Linen. Fiona accepted this legal defense. After the door closed, Tristan gave a low, amused rumble. "Do not look smug," Fiona warned. He looked smug. Warform wolves could not smirk, but Tristan made a credible attempt with posture alone. Fiona walked to the pool edge and knelt to inspect his shoulder. "You enjoy being discussed," he huffed. "You enjoy being discussed when the discussion is about me." His ears betrayed him. Fiona's mouth softened. "That is very alpha of you." His wolf preened. Then Fiona added, "It is also very towel hazard of you." The preening ended. That balance became their strange little piece. She let him be powerful without letting power flatten the room. He let her be tender without treating tenderness as submission. When his instincts pushed toward possession, she pointed to the courtship form. When her pride pushed her to work through wrist pain, he pointed to line 12. They annoyed each other into honesty. They made each other rest. For 2 people who had built their lives around being useful, that was almost scandalous. The public acknowledgement came at the end of the 3rd week. Bellwether Herbal Springs held a recovery supper for the departing Warpack patients. It was not a formal court event. Fiona refused court events on principle because they required too much perfume and too little ventilation. This was a long table meal in the covered garden hall, with clean linens, plain food, herb tea, and a strict rule that no one entered without washing. Every soldier obeyed. That alone made Fiona proud. Tristan sat at the head of one table, clean, rested, and wearing dark clothes that did not smell like a battlefield. His generals sat nearby. They looked healthier too, though several seemed embarrassed by how much they liked the estate's recovery broth. Fiona moved between tables, checking patients, speaking with attendants, and correcting one alpha who tried to hide an untreated elbow scrape under his sleeve. Tristan watched her. He did not mean to do it so openly. His wolf did. At some point, Edric leaned toward another general and muttered, not quietly enough, that Mistress Bellwether had managed what no war council had done. She had domesticated the king. The garden hall heard. Silence spread. Fiona turned. Tristan set down his cup. The old version of him might have growled. The version who arrived covered in mud might have used rank like a blade. The version sitting clean under Fiona's herb lamps understood the danger was not the joke, but the lie inside it. He stood. Every wolf in the hall lowered their gaze. Fiona did not. Tristan looked first at his soldiers, then at the attendants, then at Fiona. Mistress Bellwether did not domesticate me. Edric went pale. Tristan's voice remained calm. She did not tame me. She did not weaken me. She did not make me less alpha, less king, or less wolf. The hall held still. She taught me that refusing care is not courage. She taught this war pack that clean wounds heal faster than proud ones. She taught me to stop calling pain discipline when it was only neglect. Fiona's chest tightened. His gaze returned to her. I choose her, if she continues to permit it, because she sees the wolf and the wounds and argues with both. Several soldiers looked stunned. Mara looked satisfied. Nessa looked as if she had expected this and found everyone else slow. Fiona walked to Tristan's side. She did not bow. She did not shrink. She stood beside him in her pale green work dress, with a treatment chart still tucked under one arm. For the record, she said, he now bathes daily. The hall erupted. Laughter moved through soldiers, attendants, and staff alike. Even Edric looked relieved enough to laugh at his own near death. Tristan looked down at Fiona. Voluntarily, he added. She nodded, mostly. His wolf muttered, "We like pine soap." Tristan did not repeat that. Fiona somehow knew. Her smile became bright enough to ruin him. Months later, the Blackmore war camp smelled different. Not perfumed, never perfumed. No one would have survived calling it that. They smelled of pine resin soap, willow salve, clean wool, and warriors pretending that post-battle hygiene had always been a respected military tradition. Supply lists now included mineral salts. Officers requested recovery steam tents under the term strategic muscle readiness. Edric personally argued that honey oat soap was essential for winter elbow maintenance and threatened anyone who called it softness. Fiona's estate expanded twice. Mara developed a military intake form with a section labeled Mud Severity. Nessa received a commendation from the Alpha King for corridor defense. She framed it beside the sign reading, "All wet alphas must turn back." Tristan returned to Bellwether after every campaign. The first time he arrived in human form, removed his boots at the entrance, and handed Fiona his cloak before she asked. She looked at him for a long moment. "Who are you, and what have you done with the mud crisis?" Tristan handed over the cloak. "I learn." Fiona narrowed her eyes. Suspicious. His mouth almost smiled. Thoroughly. She checked his sleeves. Clean. His cuffs. Clean. His nails. Almost. Fiona took his hand and inspected the faint line of dirt beneath one claw-shifted nail. Tristan, Alpha King of Blackmore, ruler of the Warpack, stood in the marble hall with the seriousness of a man awaiting battlefield judgment. Fiona lifted her eyes. Nearly excellent. His wolf glowed. Tristan's face did not. Much. I will improve. I expect so. She brushed her thumb across his knuckles. No bell rang. No emergency sanitation team appeared. The marble floor remained safe. Later, in the private Warform pool, Tristan stepped into the hot water without argument. Fiona added pine resin, willow bark, and one handful of comfrey blossoms. He eyed the blossoms, but only briefly. "Inflammation," she reminded him. Tristan lowered one paw into the water. "I know." Fiona scattered the blossoms with clinical calm. "Not decoration." His muzzle tilted. "I know." She looked at him over the steam. "Not surrender." His wolf sighed in the steam. Tristan lowered himself into the water and rested his massive black head on the smooth stone edge near her knee. "Recovery," he rumbled. Fiona's hand settled between his ears. Clean fur, warm water, quiet breath, no battlefield, no performance. She looked down at the Wolf King who had once feared a bath brush more than assassins. "Correct," she said. "Recovery." His tail moved once beneath the water. The waves struck the side of the pool and splashed over her shoes. Fiona looked at the water, then at him, his golden eyes closed with suspicious innocence. "Your Majesty." One ear twitched. Fiona lifted the towel. Phase 5. The eye opened. She reached for a towel. The Alpha King groaned. Fiona laughed, warm and helpless, and the steam carried the sound up into the clean rafters of Bellwether Herbal Springs. She had not domesticated him. She had not tamed him. She had simply taught the most powerful wolf in the Empire that even kings healed better when someone was brave enough to hand them soap. And if he still needed supervision around clean towels, well, Fiona Bellwether was a professional. Thank you for listening. If this story made you laugh, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss our next story. We'll see you in the next one.